have Nouriel Roubini. Mr. Roubini, thank you very much for joining us. One of the big conversations happening here in Moscow has to do with Russia as one of the BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China. And because of Russia's lackluster performance getting through the recession, it's the only country in a recession. Whether it should be a BRIC country at all, whether it really should be compared with Brazil, India, and China, where we see much more robust growth. What do you think?
Well, in the last decade, the Russian economic growth was very sustained, so comparable to the one of India and China. There's been a very severe recession this past year. Of course, there are some institutional constraints to growth. There is this fact that the economy is a one commodity, essential economy, and the growth rate of the economy is highly correlated to the price of oil. So that makes a very volatile economic growth, and that's one of the problems that Russia faces.
What's the outlook for investors over the next year in this country?
Well, there is now the beginning of an economic recovery. Most likely growth is going to be fine this year in the range of 4 or 5%, but certainly much lower than the one you had in the last few years before the economic and the financial crisis. So there's been a recovery in financial markets, strengthening of the currency. So one can be moderately cautiously optimistic about Russia, but knowing there are significant downside risks to the economy as well.
Tell me, when central banks start to roll back the liquidity that we have now in the system, what does that mean for countries like Russia? I mean, there's a fear, obviously, that there won't be the money to buy the bonds here, to buy the corporate bonds. They're supposed to come online, and to buy the stock.
Well, you know, the easing of liquidity in the advanced economy has been going to emerging markets, and there's been a significant amount of capital inflow in many emerging markets, including also Russia. That's why the currency, after weakening last year, has been strengthening right now. In countries in which there is a large budget deficit, that budget deficit can crowd out the private sector and corporate. But in the case of Russia, there's been a significant worsening of the fiscal balances, but this is also a country that was sitting on a large amount of reserves.
Quick question. A lot of people say a bet on Russia is a bet on China and the global economy. You agree with that?
Certainly there is a high correlation because the Russian economy is based on oil, and what's going to happen to the price of oil depends very much on how robust the global economic growth is going to be and how robust and sustained the Chinese economic growth is going to be.
Yeah, and there's a lot of concerns that they're tightening credit in China. Is that an issue for Russia?
There are concerns in the market about this Russia monetary tightening. The Chinese economy is overheating right now. If the tightening was to be excessive, then that could have negative effects. In my view, there is a risk, actually, the Chinese are not going to tighten fast enough. They're going to be behind the curve rather than ahead of the curve.
Got just 15 seconds. Is Greece going to go bust?
No, because I expect there's going to be eventually some financial support, either from directly the European Union or the ECB, or as I've suggested, Greece should be going to the IMF and get an IMF package.
All right, thank you very much. Nouriel Roubini there sharing his views with us on the Russian economy right here in Moscow at the Russia Forum.